once of Real Madrid, true at the current Real Madrid legend.
The Netherlands had played 3 World Cup finals and lost every single one of them. Not twice, not once, but 3 times. 1974, 1978, and 2010. A nation known for beautiful football and legends like Cruyff, Van Basten, and Robin. But the only trophy they have ever won was the Euros 1988. All besides that was just heartbreak. Here's the brutal truth of how the Dutch mastered the art of losing finals. 1974, West Germany. The world is watching, and the Netherlands wasn't just playing football, they were refining it. Total football, fluid, rotational, and revolutionary. Defenders became attackers, attackers pressed like defenders. Space was the weapon, and Johan Cruyff, the conductor, the genius, the prop. They didn't just win, they humiliate. Brazil dismantled, Argentina torn apart. Defenders couldn't mark them because no one stayed in position. It wasn't just football, it was jazz, improvised, elegant, and untouchable. Then came the final, West Germany, Munich, a nation with its own scars, facing a team on a mission. The opening whistle, 1 pass, 2, 3, Cruyff charges through the middle and gets fouled in the box. Penalty. And while the Netherlands score, making it 1-0, the Germans hadn't even touched the ball yet. And at that moment was when it all began to unravel. Dutch thought the game was theirs. Instead of finishing off Germany, they showed off, passing, dribbling, and dancing. But football isn't ballet, and the Germans didn't flinch. They waited, and then they struck. The Germans waited for the Dutch to foul them in the box. Then they struck with a soft penalty, equalizing the game 1-1 for them. The Dutch froze. They couldn't find their rhythm. Even though Cruyff tried to pull them back, the Germans were held in firm, and they eventually scored by Gerd Müller, who was the ultimate predator. Quick turn and low shot. The Dutch will eventually lose to the Germans, who would win their first World Cup since 19. Total football was beautiful, but it was arrogant. The Dutch didn't lose because they were outplayed. They lost because they believed in their own. They forgot the rule. You don't win trophies for philosophy. You win them by finishing the job. 1978, Argentina. Same blueprint, same orange shirts, but something was missing. No Cruyff. He refused to play. He said sometimes it was a protest about Argentina's military dictatorship. Others said it was a kidnapping attempt on his family in Barcelona. For whatever reason, the soul of the team was gone. Holland still had a system. They still had Neskin, Rep, and a Racing Brain, but there was no general, no one to hold the line when it starts cracking. Argentina, the host nation, weren't just playing football, they were playing politics. Allegations swirled, mysterious referee decisions, inconvenient scheduling, and the infamous win over Peru 6-0 smelled like a backroom deal. The Dutch kept pushing, grinding their way to the final, but it never looked like the 1974 version. They looked chaos and pressure, and on that day in that country, the Dutch folded. 32 years later in South Africa 2010, for the third time in history, the Netherlands was in the World Cup final. But this wasn't the 1974 team by Cruyff, ballet, nor this wasn't the 1978 team that danced in the rain. This was something much darker. Enter Bert van Marwijk, a coach who didn't want art, he wanted results. No more total football purity, just power, grit, and cold-blooded control. The midfield, Nigel de Jong and Mark van Bommel, two human wrecking balls. Their job wasn't to create, it was to destroy the defense and midfield. Forget pressing high or fluid movements. Van Marwijk compacted the midfield, suffocated the opposition, and let the front three work in transition. Sneijder at his peak, pulling strings and scoring goals. Robin, electric on the counter. Van Persie, quiet but always lurking. And it worked. They beat Brazil Brazil, and they made it through the chaos. But in the final, they would meet the masters of control, Spain. Xavi and Iniesta, Busquets, Piqué, and Casillas. Pique tiki-taka full 60% possession. No, try 75%. They didn't run. They passed until you suffocated. They fought, literally. 14 yellow cards in one match. De Jong's flying kung fu kick into Xabi Alonso's chest is now legendary for all the wrong reasons. They were barely hanging by a thread, yet they nearly won it. The 81st minute, Adrian Robben one-on-one with Casillas. The nation held its breath. Robben hesitated. Casillas stuck out a leg, then saved the ball from nearly resulting in the Netherlands winning the World Cup for the very first time, but Casillas denied that. Then in the 116th minute, the Netherlands had to pay for all their sins by Fabregas, who made a through ball to Iniesta, who composed cynical and scored the goal with a hat trick. Silence, as Spain was the world champions for the very first time. This was incredibly brutal for the Netherlands as they lost 3 World Cup finals. The Netherlands had abandoned their identity to win at all costs. They didn't lose because they lacked talent. They lost because they lost themselves. They went to war instead of playing the game they once defined, and at the end of it, football punished them for it. The Dutch sold their soul for the trophy and still left empty-handed. Brazil 2014. Everyone thought the Netherlands was finished, old, broken, and still haunted by Iniesta's ghost. But Louis van Gaal had other ideas. No Cruyffian elegance, no fake promises, just chaos. A 5-3-2 system. Robben reborn, Van Persie flying. Both countries were rematching from the World Cup final previously. The revenge was served cold, but it was deep fried in humiliation. 1-5 to the Dutch's favor. Van Persie's Superman header defined physics. Robben torched Ramos and Piqué like they were just training cones. It wasn't a win, it was an execution. The tiki-taka Spanish era ended that day, and it was the Dutch who pulled the plug. Van Gaal wasn't playing checkers, he was playing dimensional chess. They broke Mexico's heart in the round of 16. Then the audacity, he snubbed the goalkeeper just for penalties against Costa Rica. Tim Krul, 2 saves. Genius or insanity? How about both? It felt like the Netherlands was going back to the World Cup finals. But in the semi-final they faced Argentina, deadlocked, Cajun, and a war of attrition. Penalties, why again? But no Krul this time, why? Van Gaal used all his subs. It backfired. Romario saved and Messi danced. The dream died. But they still finished third. They destroyed Brazil in the third place match, 3-0 in their own home after the 7-1 defeat by the Germans. Not champions, but they were definitely executioners. If they would have faced Brazil, they would have been in the World Cup final. However, they faced Lionel Messi Argentina, which was super disciplined and focused. The Netherlands in 2014 didn't write history, but they've burned a few chapters on their way out.
Robben, once of Real Madrid, true at the current Real Madrid legend and captain of Spain, Iker Casillas.
What a chance.